He's still gonna get his check.
I'd like to call tonight's order to the public hearing. I would ask the clerk to call roll, please.
Councilman Capshaw.
Here.
Councilman Stevenson.
Here.
Councilman Plow.
Here.
Councilman Davis.
Here.
Councilman Collins.
Here.
Councilman Ricky.
Happy to be here.
Councilwoman Sandberg.
Present.
And Councilman Mickler.
Present.
Absent this evening, Councilman Stewart.
Have the clerk read ordinance 7148 by title only, please.
Approval of minutes?
Ordinance 7148 is an ordinance fixing the budgets for various departments, boards, and commissions of the city of Kokomo, Indiana, be it ordained by the Common Council of the city of Kokomo, Indiana.
Do we have any comments from the floor? Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing. Would now like to call to order tonight's common council meeting, and our invocation will be given by Pastor James Murdoch of Here's Hope. After that, the pledge will be led by Councilman Greg Davis. You may stand, remain seated at this time.
Please join me in prayer. Almighty God, Heavenly Father, Lord, you are so awesome, and your word says that you are a good God and that you do good. God, you give wisdom to those who ask. You guide those who seek you and trust you, Lord. So, Father, we pray this evening for all the councilmen, for those in attendance here, Lord, that you would lead and guide and direct each heart and each mind in your wisdom, that you would help each one, Lord, to work for the benefit and the blessing of this community. And we praise you for all these things, Lord, in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask the clerk to call roll, please.
Councilman Capshaw.
Here.
Councilman Stevenson.
Here.
Councilman Plow.
Here.
Councilman Davis.
Here.
Councilman Collins.
Here.
Councilman Ricky.
Still here.
Councilwoman Sandberg.
Present.
And Councilman Mickler.
Here.
I would now entertain a motion.
Excuse me. Absent this evening still is Councilman Tony Stewart.
Thank you. I would now entertain a motion for approval of minutes from our September 9th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. I would now ask for any committee reports from the council. Do we have any communications from the floor? Any communication from council? I would now ask the clerk to read ordinance 7156 by title only, please.
Ordinance 7156 is an ordinance annexing certain territory to the city of Kokomo, Indiana, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Kokomo, Indiana, for West Judson Road. Second reading.
Councilman Sandberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for support of ordinance 7156.
Support.
As stated, ordinance 7156 is an ordinance annexing certain territory to the city of Kokomo, placing this annexed area within the corporate boundaries, city limits of the city of Kokomo. This territory is located off West Judson Road. The Common Council received a petition signed by owners of this annexed area requesting the city to adopt an ordinance to annex this land. A copy of this petition was signed by all owners and is marked as Exhibit A, which can be reviewed in its entirety on the city's website. As adopted in Resolution 2820, the physical plan and a provision of services is complete after a duly noticed public hearing which took place at the beginning of this past meeting on the 9th. This annexation consists of 11.51 acres and may be reviewed in its entirety in Exhibit B on the city's website. And this territory is at least 1/8 contiguous to the existing corporate boundary of the city. This land area is currently zoned R1, very low density residential, and after annexation, it will be zoned as M3, general multifamily residential. Mr. President, I move for passage of ordinance 7156 on second reading.
Second. Do we have any communications from the floor? Right now, we have a motion and a second for passage of ordinance 7156 on second reading. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll now ask the clerk to read ordinance 7157 by title only, please.
Ordinance 7157 is case P14Z24, is a rezone from an M2 multifamily residential to an R3 medium-density single-family residential for property located at 5811 South Park Road and the 3 adjoining lots located east of the Wildcat Creek Golf Course. First reading.
Councilman Grieco.
Mr. President, ordinance 7157 is a petition of Wildcat Resources LLC for a change in zone classification from M2 multifamily residential to R3 medium-density single-family residential for the property located at 5811 South Park Road and the 3 adjoining lots located east of the Wildcat Creek Golf Course. I would move for passage of ordinance 7157 on first reading.
Second. Do we have any communications from the floor? State your name, please.
My name is David Barrett. I'm an attorney here in Kokomo. I work with law firm of Bailiff, Harrigan, Court, Morris, and Cox. I'm just here representing the petitioners here. They're also present in case you have any questions. We had a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission staff and the Planning Commission. We've since that time period had a community meeting. I certainly cannot speak for every member that's adjoining this particular subdivision. Certainly not every member came out to that meeting, but I can honestly say that no one's actually approached me with any kind of objection to this particular issue, changing it from this zoning to that zoning. In fact, the people that have spoken to me are actually more in favor of having it done that way because they prefer it to be the R3 as opposed to the M2. So we're just asking for it to be done that way because development's going to be in place, but the people I've spoken with at these other meetings have all been in favor. I'm not saying that there aren't people that aren't, but as far as I know, everyone's in favor of being changed that way.
Any questions? Thank you.
Sure.
Any further communications?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Justin Myers, and I'm a resident Kokomo, 5603 South Park Road. If you're wondering where that is, it's about halfway between 26 and Center on Park Road. I'm aware that we're only discussing the zoning petition tonight, but I made some concerns known at the Planning Commission. I would like to do the same tonight as this process moves forward. First, I'd like to thank Mrs. Calderon and Mrs. Howard for being good communicators as I've asked questions about the process for this project and how it's been going along. A thank you goes out to the Coons family, Steve, Clem, and Greg, for hosting the meeting at South Creek. I believe that went a long way to answer questions for the community. Was very helpful, and they've been good partners so far. And Clem and Chad are here tonight, and we're thankful for them to be here to answer questions. On August 29th, Steve, Clem, and Greg met with my wife and inspect our property lines. We were very, very nervous about those property lines as shown on the plat document that was shared to the Planning Commission. And we're very, very thankful that they were able to verbally assure us on our property on August 29th that our western property line is established by the fence, and our beautiful line of trees that we have that are well over 100 years old is not going to be in danger any longer of being cut down. Tonight, my main point, I'm speaking on safety concerns for the planned north entrance between my home and that of Bill Morgan, which is 5205 South Park Road. The space between our home is labeled as a subdivision row on Beacon, which I believe is a city right-of-way as well. City of Kokomo Code Ordinances, Title 15, Chapter 155, Section 72 is about street standards in Table P, and it references the Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials standards for what is known as minimum sight distance. My home sits on a hill, and if you are traveling northbound on South Park Road, there is a it's very difficult to see over that hill. You must travel probably 1/3 of the way onto my property, which is 330 feet running north and south, to be able to see on the other side of that hill. And that planned intersection, I believe, is a very, very high safety concern. So that would be for northbound traffic turning left into the proposed entrance, or those folks pulling out of the new neighborhood turning left to go north. My neighbor, Bill Morgan, if you were to sit in a lawn chair out in my yard and hang out and watch Bill has to leave his driveway and accelerate in the southbound lanes and merge into the northbound lanes based on the traffic. Okay, that's how high that hill is, and those are, with his vision and his ability to see over that hill, it's very, very difficult. My neighbor to the south has asked me if I cared if he put a live video camera facing north for when he pulls out of his driveway to head north because of the hill. And so it's hard for him to see when he'd like to travel north, and he also has to accelerate at a high rate when he's traveling south with traffic coming. So that is a concern that I'd like to bring to the council as they begin to consider this. I know that is all going to be under the city engineer's purview later on as this process continues, but I think it's important that I express those concerns. In addition to the speed concerns, the safety standards that are in the city of Kokomo's ordinances have to do with line of sight. Currently it's 45 miles per hour. And those standards require 500 feet of sight distance and 360 feet of sight distance for stopping purposes. And both those numbers are for major and minor roads that are at grade or flat. Okay. In addition to that, I've looked further into it, and they have what's called crest vertical curve, which has to do with the grade of either side of the hill and those sight distances being extended because of the hill. And I would like to be able to trust that the city of Kokomo, through Mr. Pike's office, is going to be able to come up with some sort of solution, whether it is stop lights, something I know they've talked about, different sort of signage and those sorts of things. But if you were to sit on my front porch on any given evening, you're going to see speeds in excess of 70 miles an hour several times. My children play out there in the driveway, and those speeds are quite excessive. So to that end, I would ask that the city of Kokomo, if they are going to continue on with the north entrance, which I think, again, I believe the developers and their engineers are wonderful people, and I think our city engineer will do that as well. I think a speed study and a volume study, it would go a very, very long way to helping the citizens in the community of that area that it's going to affect. If you've been on Park Road at any point and driven that section, you'll know. And if you haven't, I would encourage the council to do so at some point here as things progress. Once again, to be clear, many of my neighbors are very, very thankful that we're proposing going from M2 to R3. That's not of contention here, but again, really interested in seeing how the city is going to handle it and how they're going to work with the developers to deal with those safety concerns. You think about buses that'll eventually have to pull out of there to go to school at Western. So those are the things that I'd like to bring to the council tonight. I appreciate everyone's time. Have a safe and pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know that some of those concerns will be addressed in some further meetings that doesn't concern us with the rezoning. So, but thank you. Any other further communication? Hearing none. We're on 7157. We have a motion and a second for passage ordinance 7157. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries in the first reading. I'm going to punt here on this for just a second, and I'm going to ask that we get council, that the clerk would read Resolution 2819 by title only, please.
Resolution 2819 is a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kokomo, Indiana, authorizing use of the opioid settlement funds in accordance with the settlement agreement.
Sandberg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I move for support of Resolution 2819.
Support.
As stated, Resolution 2819 is a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kokomo authorizing use of opioid settlement funds in accordance with the settlement agreement. Local jurisdictions throughout the county, including the City of Kokomo, have and continue to experience an opioid epidemic as a result of opioid misuse, abuse, dependency, overdoses, and opioid-related deaths. And according to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 4 people who are prescribed opioids for chronic pain develop issues with addiction. The opioid epidemic affects our communities, devastates families, and overwhelms our healthcare, social services, law enforcement, and judicial systems. State and local subdivisions filed suit against opioid manufacturers and distributors seeking damages and injunctive relief arising from opioid use and misinformation. Representatives of litigating state and local subdivisions reached settlement agreements thereafter, resulting in the City of Kokomo receiving certain payments which are categorized as restricted and unrestricted funds. Certain wraparound services include, but not limited to, supportive housing and housing related to recovery are one such approved use of the restricted funds under the settlement agreement. Kokomo Rescue Mission has proposed an expansion to its existing facility, including the expansion from 65 beds to 135 beds, recovery services, and other housing expansions related hereto. The mayor and city council desires to utilize a portion of the restricted funds in support of the project, the KRM project. The city council finds that utilizing the settlement funds is critical to the city's ongoing efforts to provide and maintain intervention, treatment, education, and recovery services necessary to effectively combat the epidemic. Mr. President, I move to adopt Resolution 2819.
Second.
Second, and I want to give an opportunity for, I don't know who's, the mayor or Mr. Smith to come up to the mic and have a word to this.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Council. Tyler Moore, 517 Tumbleweed Drive, Kokomo, Indiana, 46901. Second home's upstairs. Anyway, no, as Councilwoman Sanborn eloquently reported in that ordinance, it was our desire to utilize the opioid settlement funds in a manner that we felt was most impactful in our community. And I can't think of a better organization that has had an incredible impact on this community for over 72 years now. And in order to support the initiatives of Kevin Smith and his team here in downtown for their Project Engage to continue to provide not just the necessary housing, but now a gathering space, a dining. I mean, I'll let him expound on that. I mean, we had the pleasure last week of breaking ground on this amazing project, but I personally want to thank you, the council, for supporting our desire as well and coming together to support the rescue mission in this transformative project for the downtown at a time when their services are in great need. So thank you very much. Without further ado, I would love to have the executive director of the Kokomo Rescue Mission, Kevin Smith, come up and share his thoughts.
Kevin Smith, 4631 South, 200 East, Kokomo. And I am just honored to ask you to allow us to be the recipient of these funds. This is not a project on a whim. It's something that we have worked on and talked about for months. It also, the longer we talked about it, the more we found it came in line with what you were talking about here. And I was here a few months ago when you were talking about the need to provide better services and a better location for those that are experiencing homelessness. And you said, you'd love for us to help. And the truth is, I tell you the same thing that Jesus' parents were told the night he was born. There's no more room. But if this project happens, there will be. And we'll do away with waiting lists. We'll do away with having to tell the court systems we don't have room for somebody that's in a program that would benefit from coming to the rescue mission. And more than that, as the mayor alluded to it, we're going to build an expanded dining room, not just for our residents, but also for the community. And we're going to create a program for us to where instead of us simply helping people in poverty, we're going to have an engaged center where they can be helped take steps towards getting out of poverty, to where somebody that is homeless gets the tools they need so when they leave us, they can be on a trajectory to never need us again. So I'm excited about this. It's a project we cannot do without support from this community, and support from this group will help us as we continue to seek the funds to complete the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of resolution 2819. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now I ask the clerk to read ordinance 7159 by title only, please.
Ordinance 7159 is case P15Z24, is a rezone from an R4 urban residential to an M2 multifamily residential property bounded by East Vale Avenue and South Calumet Street, Kokomo, Indiana.
Councilman Grieco.
Mr. President, ordinance 7159 is a petition of Mark Lopez and, well, his partner, I can't pronounce all that. For a change in zone classification from R4 urban residential to M2 multifamily residential for a little over half an acre located at East Vale and South Calumet Street. I would move for passage of ordinance 7159 on first reading.
Second.
Is there anyone to speak to?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. Not sure if you have any questions.
State your name, please.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. Mark Lopez, 170 Iron Gate Drive, Zionsville, Indiana. Currently, we live obviously in Zionsville, and we have rentals in Marion County and surrounding counties. I have a few folks in Kokomo that have been longtime residents that I've known, and I heard about, I guess everybody else heard about it, the housing need. So these lots, I met with Mr. Sheline and Ms. Kolazi, and looked at the size of the lots, looked at everything before we decided to take the next step. There seems to be an abundance of everything as far as square footage requirements, parking. One of the beautiful things is there's an alley, so all the parking will be in the rear based on the requirements, which is I think 180 square feet. So we'll have abundance of parking. Nobody will need to park on the street. It'll look just like the neighborhood. It'll be a ranch style building, two triplexes, but they'll be ranch style. There'll be hardy planks, so there's no vinyl or anything like that. I made copies of everyone. If you just kind of want a draft of what we're doing, I made a bunch of copies. One just shows the lot, and then the other one shows some drafts of what we're looking at doing. And they'll also meet the 800 square feet requirement. They'll probably exceed that a little bit as far as size. They'll be a mixture of, each one will be probably two 3-bedrooms and 1 2-bedroom. But Mr. Sheelan and Ms. Colazzi said everything based on the size of the lot and everything that they thought it would meet all the requirements.
Any questions from the council? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, and we're excited to be in Kokomo. You know, we believe in paying your civic rent, so we support Wheeler Mission in Indianapolis a lot. We support the Hope Center, and I was kind of excited to see the gentleman that just came up here because we want to give back. So, yeah, hopefully this.
Well, they're fundraising right now, and you can give back anytime you
Good,
want.
actually, we always are ready to give. We are always ready to
We would
give.
love that.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other communication? We have a motion and a second for passage of ordinance 7159 on first reading. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Would ask the clerk to read ordinance 7160 by title only, please.
Ordinance 7160 is case P16Z24, is a rezone from an R1 very low density residential to an M3 large scale multifamily residential.
Councilman Grieco.
Mr. President, ordinance number 7160 is a petition of Robert and Deborah Keller for a change in zone classification from R1 very low density residential to M3 large scale multifamily residential for property containing approximately 11.5 acres west of Northwest Park. I would move for passage of ordinance 7160 on first reading.
So moved. Oh, second, I'm sorry. I meant to say second, sorry.
Do we?
A lot of movement down here.
Yeah. Do we have any communications from the floor? Don't move so fast. Slow down.
Well, I was thinking-
Grab yourself.
I was thinking it's a second, not a so moved. I'm sorry.
Good evening, council. My name is Paul Wyman, 1533 West Lincoln Road, Kokomo, Indiana, here with the Wyman Group this evening. Very excited to be before you for this rezoning tonight. We did receive a unanimous approval and recommendation from the Plan Commission forwarded to you all this evening. As you can imagine, with the excitement and the announcement of the investment of the battery plant, it is having the effect that our community hopes, which is additional investment. And shortly before the battery plant announcement, the city of Kokomo did a housing study, and that housing study clearly showed a demand for single-family housing as well as multifamily. And as you could imagine, the battery plant and all the great investments coming with that has helped exacerbate the housing need and demand in our community. And so I'm really thrilled to tell you that tonight, one of the most foremost companies in housing, Buckingham Properties, is very interested in making a large investment here in our community. And if you're not familiar with Buckingham Properties, they've been around since 1984 and have about $3 billion of property under management across the country. So they have some just absolutely fantastic properties, and they're looking to build a beautiful facility here in Kokomo. As Councilman Grieco mentioned, it is directly west of Northwest Park, which is the top drawing that you see in the packet that you have before you. And with this beautiful apartment complex, you're looking at about 266 units. There will be about 7 buildings, a clubhouse, a pool, and of course, the ever so great demand for pickleball courts now. There will be a pickleball court at this complex as well. And so during the Plan Commission meetings, there were a couple residents that had some questions. I've had plenty of phone calls with residents out in that area answering questions, and overall a very good response. And so tonight we're here to ask for the rezoning from R1 to M3 for this 11.5 acres.
Any questions, council?
I have a question.
Sure.
Since these are apartments, and we're moving into this electric car
Yeah.
world, is there any way an apartment owner can charge their car?
Sure. I would tell you that most developers these days are looking at charging stations being on site, and that'll absolutely be taken into consideration in the project.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further questions, council? Mr. Wiley, thank you. Any other communication? We have a motion and a second for passage of ordinance 7160 on first reading. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll ask the clerk to read ordinance 7161 by title only, please.
Ordinance 7161 is case P17Z24, is a rezone from an R3 medium-density single-family residential and a C1 small to medium-scale general commercial to an M2 multifamily residential.
Councilman Grieco.
Mr. President, ordinance 7161 is a petition of Ferris Center LLC for a change in zone classification from R3 medium-density single-family residential and C1 small to medium-scale general commercial to M2 multifamily residential for property located at 1510 East Morgan Street, 2219 North 100 East, and 2136 North Cooper Street. This is essentially property between where Hardee's is there off of Morgan Street and where Morning Star Church is, and then to the north. So I would move for passage of ordinance 7161 on first reading.
Second.
Any communication from the floor?
So again, Paul Wyman, 1533 West Lincoln Road, with the Wyman Group. So I'm as equally as excited and honored to be here representing this project as well this evening. As you can see on your agenda, we have the rezoning, and then next on the agenda would be the planned unit development. So if it pleases the council, I'll make my presentation during the zoning, and then I'll just sit down. If there's any questions during the planned unit development part, that's fine, but I will not repeat the entire presentation to you twice at that time. So the rezoning portion of this, if you look at the drawing that I just handed you, is properties 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the intent of the rezoning of those is to bring them in line with 1 and 2, and then collectively we'll do the planned unit development in the next agenda item. And so what the zoning does for us is it creates an area out here kind of bordered by Cooper Street and Morgan Street, if you would, with another developer who looks at our community and says, wow, there's a tremendous amount going up on there, going up in Kokomo, and we'd like to be a part of that. And what's really cool about this development is it is a true mixed-use development. And you see these in some other communities that are growing pretty fast, where walkability and resources and amenities become a really important factor in creating this type of development. So if you would turn the page and look, you will see the conceptual master plan for the planned unit development. Now this is the conceptual, so some of the pieces and Lego pieces inside may move around, and we'll deal with that during site plan approval process. But for purposes of tonight, to accomplish the rezoning and to create an opportunity where we will have housing, retail, and hotel all together in one area. And so literally, if you were living in one of the townhouses or the apartments that are being planned for this area, you can walk out of your apartment, you can walk to dinner, you can walk to a coffee shop, The people staying in the hotel would be able to come out of the hotel and experience retail and eatery as well. And then as part of the walkability, this developer plans to have connectivity all the way up to the battery plant. So anybody living in this area could walk, ride their bike to work or something along those lines if they were working at the battery plant. The other really awesome part about this project, as you could imagine, it's an industrial area out there with the building of the battery plant, many of the suppliers. This provides a tremendous buffer between the industrial aspect of what's happening in the area and a lot of the housing that is south of that. And so if you look at the aerial on the second one with the conceptual drawing, you can see a lot of the residents on the left side of the page there are now going to be looking at townhomes and that sort of thing across the street as opposed to industrial type buildings. And then if you go another page or two, you would see the types of apartments and types of retail. And then the very last page, if you can see my drawing here, this page here, this is an actual picture that I took about 10 days ago of the townhomes that are already under construction in this area. And the beauty of that is these are beautiful townhomes. They're probably in the $500,000 range or more. And they are probably 30 days, 45 days from being done. And so with that, you get to see the quality of the type of work that this developer is doing in the area. It gives you a feel for the remainder of the project and the type of retail that they'll be working to attract. On the apartment side, this planned unit development could accommodate up to 500 units on an apartment. The hotel, we're looking at about 120 doors. The hotel would be an extended stay hotel. And as you could imagine, with all of the supplier companies as well as Star Plus Energy, they have a tremendous amount of business visitors coming and going. And the hotel would provide a very convenient location for them to have an extended stay while they're doing their work here in our community. And then the retail, we're looking at about approximately 66,000 square feet of retail space. And so, as I mentioned, cafes, restaurants, clothing, any of that sort of thing that would complete one of these really nice planned unit developments. And so it's an exciting opportunity in what most people have believed becoming an industrial area, and it just shows you that good investment will breed good investment, and this is an incredible opportunity for our community.
Questions, Councilman?
Which plot is the hotel going in on?
So if you look at the second page, you'll see the hotel right now is drawn in there as being down closer to Cooper and Morgan Street. And as I mentioned, some of those Lego pieces may move around, and we'll have that discussion during site plan. But right now in this conceptual drawing, that's where it's at. Some of the discussions that I think the developer is trying to think through right now is there a way for apartments and hotel to share some amenities, meaning like maybe the outdoor swimming pool, for example. So if the hotel and apartments were closer to each other and the pool was between them, could they both utilize an outdoor pool during the 4 or 5 months that we would have for a season? So they're looking at all of those sorts of things right now, but certainly when it comes to site plan approval, we'll be working with Greg Sheeline, his entire staff, to make sure that this is laid out and designed in a way that works for everybody in the area. And then the other thing I would share with you on that drawing, if you see these yellow buildings, these are the townhomes here, and then the yellow roads around it, those are city roads that will actually be owned by the city of Kokomo. And so you'll have multiple ways into the planned unit development, but once you're inside, you'll be able to navigate throughout the planned unit development without having to go back outside into any of the major roads. You'd be able to just navigate your way through there for whichever experience that you're looking for.
The orange area to the north is potential future development?
It is. Right now, there is no plan for development on that, but it would certainly be available for future growth.
Any other questions, council?
Thank you.
Any other communication from the floor? We have a motion, a second for ordinance 7161. First reading, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I ask the clerk to read ordinance 7162 by title only, please.
Ordinance 7162 is case P18Z24, is a rezone from an M2 multifamily residential to a PD-M2 planned development.
Councilman Grieco.
Mr. President, ordinance 7162 is a petition of Town Place LLC and Ferris Center LLC requesting a change in zone classification from M2 multifamily residential to PD M2 planned development for the property that we just discussed, along with section 1 and 2 as shown on the map that Mr. Wyman provided to us. I would move for passage of ordinance 7162 on first reading.
Second.
Any communication from the floor? We have a motion and a second for passage of ordinance 7162 on first reading. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ask the clerk to read ordinance 7163 by title only, please.
Ordinance 7163 is an ordinance of the City of Kokomo and Center Township, Howard County, Indiana, concerning amendment to the Kokomo zoning ordinance.
Councilman Grieco.
Mr. President, ordinance number 7163 is an amendment to the zoning ordinance. This is the PD that's been discussed for the properties that we've just rezoned, outlining all the specifications for that planned unit development. I move for passage of ordinance 7163 on first reading.
Second. Any communication from the floor? We have a motion and a second for passage of ordinance 7163 on first reading. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll ask the clerk to read resolution 2823 by title only, please.
Resolution 2823, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kokomo, Indiana. 1, approving a declaratory resolution economic development plan of the City of Kokomo Redevelopment Commission establishing the University Park Economic Development Area. 2, the order of the City of Kokomo Plan Commission related thereto, and 3, an economic development agreement with 6G2 Properties LLC in connection with the development and financing of a mixed-use development in the University Park Economic Development Area.
Councilman Sandberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for support of Resolution 2823.
Support.
Thank you. As stated, Resolution 2823 is a declaratory resolution in Economic Development Plan of the City of Kokomo Redevelopment Commission establishing the University Park Economic Development Area along with an economic development agreement with 6G2 Properties LLC, which finances the area as a mixed-use development. In August, the Redevelopment Commission adopted a resolution approving an economic development plan for the University Park Economic Development Area, declaring it an economic development area which would be subject to economic development activities pursuant to Indiana Code. The Redevelopment Commission submitted the declaratory resolution, that's a hard word to say, I'm just telling you right now, for consideration, and it was approved by the Plan Commission on September 10th. This act now requires approval from the Common Council. It further requires approval of the determination that the area is an economic development area by the approval of the council. The Common Council has been advised of this agreement between the Redevelopment Commission and 6G2 Properties LLC. Through this agreement, the 6G2 group has proposed to undertake the construction of a mixed-use development in this University Park area, which is located near the southeast corner of East Boulevard and South LaFountain Streets. This development will include multifamily apartment units and commercial development with an estimated total development cost of approximately $29,823,000. As part of the agreement, the city and the Redevelopment Commission have agreed to facilitate the development of the project, which includes providing certain tax increment bond financing incentives and forgivable loan incentives to the developer for the benefit of the project and in accordance with the Act and Indiana Code. Therefore, the council has reviewed the agreement and finds it in line with the provisions of the Indiana law, including the act and the Redevelopment Commission's development plan for the project site. This project will serve to foster and encourage economic and redevelopment of the city and will be a great benefit to the city of Kokomo. Mr. President, I move for passage of Resolution 2823.
Second.
I just want to point out that the next couple of resolutions that are read are followed and connected to the ordinances that come after them. So we have a motion and a second for adoption of Resolution 2823. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. Ask the clerk to read ordinance 7164 by title only, please.
Ordinance 7164, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the City of Kokomo, Indiana, taxable economic development tax increment revenue bonds. The Villages at University Park project. The issuance and funding of the City of Kokomo, Indiana taxable economic development revenue notes, the Villages at University Park project, and the lending of the proceeds thereof to the borrower, and authorizing and approving other actions in respect thereto.
Councilman Mickley.
Mr. President, I'd like to present ordinance 7164.
Support.
Thank you. I would like to start with a description of the project, if you will. It will be approximately 132 units located at the Villages of University Park, which will be at La Fountain and Boulevard, heading south by the American Legion Golf Course. And it's anticipated that IUK students, young professionals, and working class families will all partake in this. The project includes all cost and connection, and the project will be generally located in the central part of the city. That's somewhat unique as it relates to the other projects we see going up north. With that said, that's where the project is. As mentioned, it is private investment of $29 million, TIF bond investment of $15 million, and a ready grant of $3.7 million with a forgivable loan of $4.2 million. This is significant in that it helps move the project forward. These projects are turning a page in Kokomo history. So as I read through this, I will paraphrase the best I can the legalese, but if you want to go through the legalese, it's all on the website. With that said, the City of Kokomo is a municipal corporation. 6G2 Properties LLC or its affiliates desires to finance construction of multifamily and commercial projects, which is located and directly serves and benefits the city's University Park economic development area. The borough has advised the Kokomo City Economic Development Commission that they propose that the city issue taxable economic development tax increment revenue bonds in the amount not to exceed $15 million under the act and loan of the proceeds of such bonds for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of the project. The borrower has further advised the commission that its proposal that the city issue and fund taxable economic development revenue notes, which is different, in the amount not to exceed $4,200,000 under the act and the loan proceeds of such forgivable notes on a basis to the borrower. And whereas prior to making the loan as evidenced in the forgivable notes, the city's redevelopment commission has and will pledge certain tax increment revenues on hand to the funding of the forgivable notes, which has been done. Excuse me. Let me move that. Whereas on the 17th of September, there was a public hearing on this project, and whereas the commission has performed all actions required by the acts primarily to adopt the bond ordinance and has approved and forwarded to the common council a loan agreement between the city and borrower and the forgivable loan, a trust indenture between the city and trustee, the bonds, the forgivable notes, and the bond purchase agreement, and this bond ordinance. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the council that the public benefits of this council finds and determines the project will increase employment opportunities, increase diversification of economies, development of the city, and will improve and promote economic stability and development in the welfare of the city. Approval of financing. The proposed financing was approved by the city's Economic Development Commission, and authorization of bonds and forgivable notes payable solely from revenues and receipts derived by the financing agreement. In terms of the bonds and forgivable notes, the bonds in the aggregate amount not to exceed $15 million shall be executed prior to closing date. Okay, the maturity date is 25 years, the interest rate is 7%, and the forgivable notes are $4,200,000, and they will mature not later than 25 years and bear an interest of 5%. Subject to the loan forgiveness as provided by the financing agreements and contain other terms and provisions as may be appropriate. The bonds, forgivable notes, and interest thereon do not and shall not constitute an indebtedness or a charge against the general credit or taxing power of the city. That is a significant clause in the bonds, or in this ordinance. Sale of the bonds and funding of forgivable notes, the mayor and controller of the city are authorized and directed in name on behalf of the city to sell the bonds to the purchaser at the prices and manners set forth. The mayor, controller, and clerk of the city are authorized and directed in name on behalf of the city to execute and endorse and deliver the loan agreement. The mayor, controller, and city clerk of the city, and each of them are authorized and directed in the name on behalf of the city to execute this agreement. Binding effect. The provisions of the bond ordinance and financing agreement shall constitute a binding contract between the city and holders of the bonds and forgivable notes. Mr. President, I move that we adopt ordinance 7164 as presented.
Second.
Any communication from the floor? We have a motion and a second for passage of ordinance 7164 on first reading. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I ask the clerk to read resolution 2825 by title only, please.
Resolution 2825, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kokomo, Indiana, approving, one, a declaratory resolution as amended, and an economic development plan of the City of Kokomo Redevelopment Commission establishing the Cooper/Morgan Street Economic Development Area. Two, the order of the City of Kokomo Plan Commission related thereto. And three, an economic development agreement with Ferris Center LLC and Town Place LLC in connection with the development and financing of a mixed-use development in the Cooper-Morgan Economic Development Area.
Councilwoman Sandberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for support of Resolution 2825.
Support.
As stated, Resolution 2825 is a declaratory resolution as amended and economic development plan of the City of Kokomo Redevelopment Commission establishing the Cooper-Morgan Street Economic Development Area along with an economic development agreement with Ferris Center LLC and Town Place LLC, which will develop and finance the area as a mixed-use development within the Cooper-Morgan Street Economic Development Area. In August, the Redevelopment Commission adopted a resolution approving an economic development plan for the Cooper-Morgan Street Economic Development Area, declaring it an economic development area which would be subject to economic development activities pursuant to Indiana Code. In September, the Redevelopment Commission adopted the resolution amending the original declaratory resolution to reflect that certain parcels in the area are to be removed from the Industrial Park Consolidated Economic Development Area in the Consolidated West-East Industrial Park allocation area in connection with the establishment of the area. The Redevelopment Commission submitted the declaratory resolution plan for consideration, and it was approved by the Plan Commission on September 10th. This act now requires approval from the Common Council. It further requires approval of the determination that the area is an economic development area by the approval of this council. The Common Council has been advised of this agreement between the Redevelopment Commission and Ferris Center LLC and Town Place LLC. Through this agreement, Ferris Center LLC and Town Place LLC groups have proposed to undertake the construction of a mixed-use development in the area located at North 100 East, 2286 North Cooper Street, and 2290 North Cooper Street that will include retail, multifamily apartment units, and residential housing with an estimated total development cost of approximately $106,545,000. As part of the agreement, the city